What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. The history the government hopes you never learn. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show. It's Wednesday, May 6th, 2020, and we're going to get right into the news here for hour number one. So a lot of people still talking about this failed Venezuela coup, and apparently these two former Special Forces troops have been arrested, paraded before the cameras, and a former Green Beret is behind this whole operation. Apparently, he once provided security for Trump and hatched this plot after meeting with the president's bodyguard and a billionaire member of the Kraft family and the South American country's opposition leaders in Miami. Now, the United States is saying they had nothing to do with this. I'm inclined to believe them simply because of how badly botched this whole thing was. I mean, I know our government can really mess things up a little bit, but this comes across, it strikes me this was a private enterprise sponsored by these billionaires working with these opposition figures. And I know it's going to surprise a lot of people, but in this particular case, I'm believing the official story that this was not an officially sanctioned operation by the U.S. government. Anyway, this ex-Green Beret, Jordan Gaudreau, is 43 years old, and apparently he provided security at one of the president's rallies in Charlotte, North Carolina, and he also claims to have provided security at a rally in Houston 4 days earlier. Now, he owns his own security firm called Silvercore, and claims he planned and led the international security teams for the president as well as the Secretary of Defense. Now, Trump has denied any involvement by the U.S. in Monday's failed attack. And like I said, I'm inclined to believe it because of how badly they botched it up. I mean, these guys didn't even get on shore before they were intercepted by the Venezuelan military. I mean, that's whatever. Anyway, the brother of one of the American mercenaries captured during that failed incursion in Venezuela is pleading with the U.S. government to help save his life, saying he deserves to come home. And apparently, and this I'm sure is just a coincidence, Venezuela's been hit with another major power outage. Caracas is currently without power, but I'm sure it's just a coincidence. I don't know. Maybe the U.S. was behind this, and maybe they did botch it that badly. I mean, it could be another Bay of Pigs. Look how badly they screwed that one up. So, let's see. President Trump is just now on TV. He's still going on and on about the coronavirus task force, which is on again, off again. We'll talk about that in a little bit here. Little article out here from Zero Hedge. How long can Biden stay in his basement? And they talk about how Barack Obama was leading from behind, and Joe Biden these last 2 months has been leading from the basement, but apparently successfully. Since his rout of Bernie Sanders on Super Tuesday, Biden has led President Trump in every national poll and lately opened up a lead in Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Florida. One poll has him tied with Trump in Texas. Now, don't forget back in 2016 when all the polls were saying that Hillary was going to win in a landslide, that she had 90% of the voters were going to vote for her. So we don't necessarily want to put too much trust in these polls here. Biden is still dealing with the Tara Reade accusations, and he's out there saying it didn't happen, and Nancy Pelosi is out there saying, oh, I believe Biden. I absolutely believe it. Absolutely believe it. So Believe Women has now been mutated into Believe Obama, because the argument being put forward by Biden supporters is that Biden was already vetted to be vice president under Barack Obama, and that if there had been any credible charges against him at that point, they would have surfaced then. And since they didn't, then that means that obviously none of this stuff really happened, and Biden is as clean as the preacher's sheets. So what we're seeing, though, is this spate of hypocrisy, because we all remember during the Kavanaugh hearing, believe the women. Believe the women are telling the truth. The men are presumed guilty until they can prove their own innocence. But that standard doesn't apply to Biden. Biden's out there trying to say, well, yeah, Tara Reade has a right to come out and say what she's going to say, but we shouldn't take it at face value, which is exactly the opposite of what they said during the Kavanaugh hearings, or for that matter, all the allegations against Trump. So senior Democrats continue to rally around Biden. On Sunday, Tom Perez dismissed calls for the DNC to launch their own investigation. Biden is an open book who's been thoroughly vetted. The Obama administration looked at the entire history of Joe Biden, his entire career. If Barack Obama had any indication there was an issue, Obama would not have had him as vice president. Barack Obama trusted Joe Biden. I trust Joe Biden, and those investigations have been done. So they're trying to say, look, we didn't find anything before. Let's not bother looking now. However, 26% of Democrats want Biden replaced because of the Tara Reade allegations. That's a lot of Democrats. Considering the tight matchup he's facing against Donald Trump, that's a significant number. Now, getting on back to Nancy Pelosi, she was asked yet again about the allegations and said, I believe Joe Biden, and I'm not going to answer this question again. She's getting very, very testy. Now, Hillary Clinton is going to be the headliner at a $100,000 per head virtual fundraiser for Joe Biden. And apparently what they're going to do for this is for the $100,000, you get the secret IP address where you can log in with your Zoom or your meeting or whatever software they're providing, and you get to sort of virtually hang out with Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton and the other people at this virtual fundraiser. And I have a feeling this is not going to work out very well because people go to these fundraisers to be there in person with the stars, the political stars. So I don't think this is going to work out all that well. But Hillary Clinton is going to be the headliner. Notice how they're pushing her to the front. They're already out there. According to this article in Blabberbuzz, Hillary may already be at the top of Biden's vice presidential list. So I don't know. I still think Hillary's going to try for that top seat. Over the weekend, there was that story where she said she's ready to step in. If Biden steps down, Hillary is ready to pick up the reins and lead the Democratic Party forward here. Okay, getting on back to Michael Flynn, we still have not heard from the judge whether the charges are going to be dismissed or not. They're going through a lot of paperwork that shows that lawyers did not provide exculpatory evidence that they were supposed to. They're going through a bunch of evidence that this was a setup right from the beginning, that the FBI did not set out to investigate anything, but to basically set Flynn up to either be fired or prosecuted. Now the big question is why? What was the motive? Well, according to an article that came on out from The Hill, the big problem for the Democrats was that Michael Flynn was opposed to a lot of Obama's policies. And the thought was that once Trump took office with Michael Flynn as his advisor, that a lot of Obama's policies would be reversed and undone. And they didn't want that to happen. They wanted Obama's legacy to continue. And just for this reason, just for the possibility that Michael Flynn might work to undo or reverse Obama's policies was the reason they wanted to get him out there. He wasn't the target. He was an obstacle. So they were concerned he was going to undo the Obama administration policies, which is what the American people voted for in 2016. They didn't like the Obama policies. So, right, that's interesting to know. So, another article on the same topic coming out of Fox News saying the FBI's Wray must go. Americans need a director they can trust. Now, Christopher Wray was brought in to repair the image of the FBI, to guarantee transparency, to guarantee that they were complying with the law. He was supposed to be a solution to this mess, and instead he became part of the problem. And he should resign or he should be fired. Now, he's been there for nearly 3 years at the helm of the FBI, and he's consistently defied Congress by refusing to produce documents exposing the dishonest acts of his predecessor, James Comey, and his cadre of corrupt Confederates. Even worse, Wray is to blame for suppressing evidence of innocence in the criminal case against former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn. As for the promises of transparency and reform, they were an illusion. replaced by a deliberate cover-up of FBI malfeasance. But those of us who studied the FBI through the years, we know this is what the FBI is like. Whether it's the cover-up of the murder of Vincent Foster, the framing of James Earl Ray, the attempt to blackmail Martin Luther King Jr. into committing suicide, this is what the FBI does. They're not the good guys. Despite all the TV shows and movies saying that the FBI are the good guys, they're not. They never have been. Getting into the international news, we're looking over at Israel at their new unity coalition government, and apparently Benjamin Netanyahu and Benny Gantz on Monday night signed an agreement which stipulates the division of power between the two, with Netanyahu to occupy the prime minister's chair first and Gantz taking over the seat a year and a half later if he's still alive. Palestine has announced that they will cancel all Israel and U.S. deals if the annexation moves forward. We've been talking about how Israel's talking about annexing, which is fancy speak for stealing, large portions of the West Bank. Palestine is saying that if it moves forward, all bets are off, all deals are off, all talk of peace is off. And so President Mahmoud Abbas basically said Palestine will nullify all agreements with the United States and Israel if Tel Aviv annexes any part of the occupied West Bank, urging the international community to block attempts by the regime to exploit the coronavirus outbreak and steal more Palestinian land. Quote, "We have informed all international parties that should Israel take this step, we will be absolved of all obligations, agreements, and understandings with Israel and the U.S. administration," end quote. Now, the remarks came shortly after Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's Likud party submitted a bill to the next Knesset that calls for the imposition of Tel Aviv's sovereignty over the Palestinian regions of the Jordan Valley, the northern Dead Sea area, and the occupied West Bank. Again, fancy speak for we're going to steal it all. Now, turning to Iran, there is still a big brouhaha going over there because right now there's an arms embargo on Iran due to expire in October. That was the terms of the original 2015 P5+1 nuclear deal. And earlier, late last week, the United States started taking the position that they wanted the embargo to be extended. And they were told rather abruptly, well, you're not part of the deal anymore. You withdrew in May of 2018. And so they tried this Orwellian doublespeak of saying, well, we quit complying with our obligations in May of 2018, but we're still part of the P5+1 deal, which try and work that one out in your head. And they argued for the continuation of the arms embargo. But European diplomats are saying, no, the United States has forfeited any right to seek renewal of the UN arms embargo on Iran when they walked away in May of 2018. You're not going to play by the rules, you're not playing the game. You're not in the game at all. So, we don't know what the United States is going to do, but they're being told politely by the international community, no, you don't get to play this game anymore. You walked away from the deal. You're not part of the deal. You've got nothing to say. All righty, we talked about this yesterday, and we're going to talk about it, and Monday. We're going to talk about it again here. The U.S. and the Royal Navy are launching a Cold War-style provocation in Russia's Arctic backyard. And they went up there with 3 guided missile destroyers and a Royal Navy frigate, sailing into the Barents Sea to assert freedom of navigation and demonstrate seamless integration among allies. And the announcement was accompanied by hashtags such as hashtag open for business, hashtag power for peace, and hashtag stronger together. So they're operating right in Russia's backyard. Like I said, I think it was just yesterday, how would the United States react if Russian warships started cruising around the Gulf of Mexico, saying we're guaranteeing freedom of navigation? I think the response would be rather strong. So let's talk about COVID-19 here. And let's see. Article out of Sputnik News here. Scientists identify alarming COVID-19 strain that leaves survivors with a higher viral load. Now, a new report published on April 30th reveals there's a new strain of the COVID-19 coronavirus that is more dominant and contagious than earlier varieties. It appears to have emerged in Europe, and because it is much more contagious than other versions, it's now the dominant form of COVID-19. The study was done by scientists at Los Alamos National Laboratory, and it shows that the new strain appeared sometime in February in Europe, then migrated to the east coast of the United States. The strain, referred to as mutation spike D614G, has been the globe's dominant COVID-19 strain since mid-March. Now, D614G is increasing in frequency at an alarming rate, indicating a fitness advantage relative to the original Wuhan strain that enables more rapid spread. That's always the danger with all of these, that it could mutate into something far more contagious. And hopefully, no more lethal, but it's a dangerous illness anyway here. Now, U.S. allies believe it is very unlikely that COVID-19 originated in a Chinese lab. The World Health Organization says there's no proof being offered by Washington, D.C. on the speculative claims coming out of the White House. That, that China made this, that it was, they're not even saying, they're not even sure it's a lab accident. Because after all, the original COVID virus was harvested from bats under a contract funded by the United States. So, okay. Apparently, intelligence shared within the Five Eyes network, CNN claimed an unnamed Western diplomat told him, "We think it's highly unlikely it was an accident. It's highly likely it was naturally occurring, and that the human infection was from natural human and animal interaction." So that seems to be what they're getting now. Of course, on the corporate media, it's all, oh, China is refusing to cooperate with us. We know China released this thing, and until China admits that's what they've done, they must be lying. Or so goes the logic. Tom Cotton was on Fox News earlier today, just out there leading the charge. We've got to make China pay for this. You know something? Illnesses emerge from nature. Yes, I agree that we shouldn't be messing around with biological weapons, but not all illnesses are a biological weapon. Some just emerge from nature. Every year there's a new variation on the flu. It's not being made in a laboratory. It just evolves. The Bible bangers aren't going to like that word, but that's exactly what it is. It's evolving. And this mutation that happened to COVID-19, that's evolution at work, because it's giving it an advantage that allows it to spread faster than other variations. That's what Darwin meant by survival of the fittest. Even Mike Pompeo was on public TV admitting that the United States doesn't actually know anything about where COVID-19 come from. Okay, all the bluster blaming China is just empty posturing. And Pompeo effectively admitted it. Now, Trump was just on Fox News, just giving a press conference here, and it's around the coronavirus task force, which late last night, Trump was giving indications that he was going to wind it down, that he wants to get the nation opened up, and this prompted quite a strong reaction, apparently one that Trump was not expecting, and so now, he's abandoned his plan to disband the coronavirus task force, and in fact says that they'll be appointing new members to it in the coming days. Says the task force will continue indefinitely, but focus on safety and opening up our country again. Oh my goodness here. Okay, we're going to take a break here for commercials. We'll be right back after these few words from our sponsors. Welcome back to our show here, and a reminder that Republic Broadcasting is in the middle of a fundraiser. Let's see, the postal address where you can send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity cash, is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can make a credit or debit card donation is 800-724-2719, extension 3. All righty, now let's go back and talk about Neil Ferguson. Now, for those of you who don't remember, Neil Ferguson is the British scientist whose highly exaggerated and sensationalized predictions of coronavirus death tolls sparked all this lockdown craziness all over Europe and the United States. He has now quit his job. It seems that he'd been having an affair with a married woman, and that during the lockdown, she was driving all the way across London for the occasional tryst. So he's been forced to resign his position, and I imagine that for the woman's husband, this is an embarrassment and a humiliation. On a more serious note, though, there's this professor at the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, was said to have been on the verge of very significant findings related to coronavirus when he was killed in an apparent murder-suicide. Dr. Bing Liu was alone in his home in the 200 block of Elm Court in Ross Township on Saturday when another man, identified as Hao Gu, allegedly entered the residence through an unlocked door and opened fire. Liu was struck by bullets in the head, neck, and torso and died of his injuries. Now, his wife was not home at the time of the homicide. The couple do not have children. Police said Gu then returned to his car parked 100 yards away at Charlemagne Circle and turned the gun on himself. Well, speculation is rife. You know, was this a hit that went wrong? Was it a lover's quarrel that went wrong? But there's been a lot of focus put on the fact that this guy was doing some work that really was looking at a breakthrough on coronavirus. Now, his specialty was computer-based modeling. And apparently he had developed some models that seemed to be a lot more accurate in terms of how the virus operates. And everybody was getting ready to use it. They're going to try and complete his work. Apparently he left copious notes. But it is a tragedy anyway. But very, very strange situation. Maybe it was professional jealousy. So we'll see. Anyway, apparently Russian, Iranian, and Chinese, like they could actually know, but let's just say foreign hackers. Foreign hackers have targeted COVID-19 research labs in the US and UK as countries race to develop a vaccine first. Okay? The US Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency and Britain's National Cybersecurity Center say the criminals have been discovered targeting healthcare bodies, particularly those involved in a coronavirus response. The news comes as countries worldwide remain engaged in a race to develop a vaccine. The first country to do so will undoubtedly achieve huge diplomatic and geopolitical influence, not to mention a lot of money. Now, this story is actually getting a lot of traction even in the corporate media, and it has to do with Shelley Luther, who's the owner of Salon a la Mode in Dallas, Texas. And she reopened her salon, brought her employees back to go to work, and she was hauled into court for opening her business when it was still supposed to be locked down. So she was brought into court for a contempt hearing and was ordered jail for 7 days. Now, Luther stood up to county and state officials, opening her business on a limited service basis and ultimately being issued a citation for being in defiance of a stay-at-home order. Now, Judge Eric Moyer, who presides over the 14th Civil District Court located in Dallas County, offered her an out by suggesting she apologize. And she refused to do so, saying that she was not going to apologize for wanting to feed her kids, that she was not going to apologize for helping her employees feed their kids, and that she preferred the 7 days in jail and the $7,000 fine. Now, I understand somebody started to GoFundMe to help raise money for the fine, and it's already gone way past what the fine is going to cost. So she's going to come out okay on this. But still, it took a lot of courage for her to stand up there and say, no, I'm not going to apologize. Not for wanting to take care of my kids. My kids are more important than your rules and laws. And I think this Shelley Luther deserves a round of applause. And I noticed at least Fox News was treating her with a great deal of sympathy. Because I think she is. She's a heroine. Or is that politically correct to use the feminine form now? She's a hero. She's as much a hero as the doctors and nurses on the front line. She's standing up for our freedom to choose our own fate. And a lot of people are saying, well, you got to think about the community. Well, we are thinking about the community, and we've been doing what we're told is good for the community. We're just not sure we've been told the truth. We're hearing more and more people come on out and say these masks are really pointless. You know, that you can get infected through skin abrasions, through the eyes, which you're not covering. And it seems like we've all been played with this hysterical overreaction. And some people are standing up and saying, enough is enough. It's time to go back to normal. We got to take another break for commercials, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to talk about the economic news here for a little bit here. Not a good day on the markets. The Dow ended 218 down. The NASDAQ ended slightly in the green. So they're happy over there. And the Federal Reserve has now started its 9th emergency lending program. And what they're basically doing is they're creating more money out of thin air, and they're using it to basically buy up everything. Now, the Federal Reserve has come out with this rather bizarre historical revision. They're claiming that the rise of the Nazis was the result of the Spanish flu. And it looks like the Fed is getting ready to try and duck responsibility for the fallout from its own policies. Because I think we can all look at the Federal Reserve and realize it was flawed right from the very start. So New York Fed economist Christine Blickel claimed in a paper published with the Fed this month that the influenza deaths from 1918 and 1920 led to long-term social changes that led Germans to vote for Hitler en masse in 1933. So it was all the fault of the Spanish flu. Actually, no, it wasn't. It was the imposition of a private central bank by the Treaty of Versailles and the abuse suffered by the German people thereby that brought the Nazis to power here. All right, China is lambasting Trump's threat of using more tariffs as a weapon amid the mutual recriminations over COVID-19. So the trade war is still on. It's still getting worse. Okay. So Donald Trump said on the 30th of April his trade deal with China was now of secondary importance to the coronavirus pandemic as he threatened Beijing with new tariffs amid allegations over the country's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, here's where it's getting kind of dangerous. Trump is already out there insisting he's seen proof that the virus came from a lab. Nobody can corroborate that. And I'm sure Trump's attitude is, I'm the president. You have to believe me. No, Donald, I don't. I don't have to believe you, and I don't believe you. Not without some kind of actual documentary proof. You know, your word is no more valuable than the word of the guy who lives across the street here. I'm sorry, that's just the way it is. You're just another human being. Being president does not make you automatically more honorable or trustworthy. Quite the contrary, I would say. So China's foreign ministry denounced threats of the tariffs as a weapon against it after Trump last week suggested looming new retaliatory measures over Beijing's alleged mishandling of the coronavirus crisis. Again, emphasis on alleged, because we have all these different opinions about where did it come from. We have the World Health Organization saying they don't think it came from the lab. They think it just occurred in nature. We don't know. And until we know for a fact where this actually came from, we shouldn't be out there talking about retaliatory measures. We shouldn't take this attitude about, we believe China made this. We believe China did all these bad things. China has to prove their innocence. That went out with the Code Napoleon. All right, over in Ohio, they're telling companies to report employees who refuse to return to work once their jobs become available, and says they will not be eligible for unemployment benefits. The reason for this is very simple. A lot of people are discovering that they're actually getting more money being on unemployment. And so as their jobs become available again, they're hesitating to go back because they'll be working harder for less money. But Ohio is saying, no, you got to go back to your job or you're going to lose your unemployment benefits anyway. I think it's smart way to handle that particular crisis. United Airlines. By United. They received $5 billion from taxpayers to protect employees' paychecks. Now it's cutting hours for 15,000 workers. And United has told all employees to consider voluntary separation from the airline. Polite word for, we want you to quit. It plans to cut 3,400 management jobs. The company delivers the painful news from the fallout from COVID-19. Airbnb is going to lay off nearly 1,900 people. 25% of the company is getting a pink slip. The story, this one coming out of Bethesda.com. Nearly half of all U.S. small businesses could close permanently this year due to the shutdown. And they may be forced to file for bankruptcy and permanently close because of the economic harm. The economic harm that was supposed to be undone by all these, the PPP and various other bailouts and stimulus, but which somehow seem to go to the big, large corporations. Now, Disney is suspending payment of its July dividend. And they're doing that because the earnings have plunged 63% due to the closure of the theme parks. So Disney's CFO, Christine McCarthy, has announced the suspension of the payment. Now, the last few weeks have seen Disney's dividend yield rise above the 10-year Treasury yield for the first time in history. That's pretty significant right there. All right. Apparently, Wells Fargo is under investigation for botching the small business relief program. And from the moment Nukin laid out the White House plan to use banks and credit unions as the intermediary to dole out the hundreds of billions of dollars in emergency liquidity approved as part of the bailout, it was going to be a wild ride. And when the administration begged the biggest banks to keep the taps running at the expense of rooting out fraud, we knew that too was bound to end poorly. The result? The PPP successfully doled out the funds, though whether the businesses that received them actually needed the money isn't clear. And just hours after the Department of Justice filed the first fraud charges tied to the program against two middle-aged small business owners from Rhode Island, we suspected it was only a matter of time before the administration reneged on the promise and threw the bankers under the bus. It's a mess out there. All right, food bank leaders warn of dwindling supplies, famine looming, got no money. And again, I'm looking at some facts here that don't really seem to make a lot of sense. We're being told that farmers are being told to stop farming, that they're plowing perfectly good vegetables back under, that they're euthanizing chickens and pigs. At the same time, we have got mile-long lines of cars at the food banks. They're blaming the supply chain. They're saying the supply chain is a problem, and yet we get phone calls from truckers all the time saying, no, we're ready to go here. And I know I'm already considered a conspiracy kook out there, but it's almost like somebody somewhere wants there to be food shortages and hunger in this country to increase our sense of dependency, maybe on the federal government. A big part of the problem related to pork, of course, is the shutting down of all these meat processing plants by, for example, Smithfield Foods, which is owned by a Chinese economic concern. Maybe this is how China is going to pay back the United States for all those baseless allegations about the Wuhan virology lab. Just say, oh my goodness, we've got coronavirus in these processing plants. They have to be shut down. And that becomes the blockade in the supply chain. I'm not really sure. But this idea that perfectly good food is having to be destroyed at a time when Americans are going hungry, something about that does not sit right with me. It really, really doesn't. Okay, youth unemployment could hit 1 million this year. Think tank warns that jobless figures among the young are set to rise by 600,000. 1 out of 5 working New Yorkers will lose their jobs by the end of June, according to the New York City comptroller. Massive unemployment. Pablo Escobar is out there saying the next game changer is on the horizon, the gold-backed digital yuan. And it will be a radical paradigm shift. The U.S. economy may shrink by as much as 40% in the first semester of 2020. China, already the world's largest economy for a few years now, may soon become the world's largest economy, even in exchange rate terms. Of course, that's why all the hostility by the United States toward China. The United States wants to be number one. It's easier to simply go out and destroy the competition than to basically, win on merit. It would be like going to the Olympics where the athletes are allowed to shoot the other athletes if they perform too well here. And again, underscoring some of the silliness surrounding open borders here. Apparently, undocumented immigrants have sued the Trump administration for denying them coronavirus stimulus checks. And apparently the lawsuit is coming from kids who enjoy birthright citizenship. Their parents were illegal immigrants. They were born in this country. They're insisting they're citizens. They should be getting stimulus checks, and they're not. And they're suing. I have to tell you, I think this birthright citizenship is a big mistake. I think that if you come to this country through the legal citizenship channels and you have a child, that child should enjoy citizenship. But just sneaking over the border and popping out a kid and saying, look, he's a U.S. citizen, give us stuff. That's unsupportable here. All right, the Pulitzer Prizes are out for this year. And the Pulitzer Prize for Commentary was awarded to Nicole Hannah-Jones for an essay in the New York Times that falsely claimed the American Revolution was fought primarily to protect slavery. Talk about pandering. And the essay was titled, Our Democracy's Founding Ideals Were False When They Were Written. Black Americans Have Fought to Make Them True. And it launched the Times' controversial 1619 Project. Now, we all know the American Revolution was fought to free us from a very predatory bank and a predatory government. Slavery was not the issue. Just like in the Civil War, where slavery wasn't really the issue there. It was the South trying to rid themselves of a very predatory Northern government. Okay, apparently 75% of U.S. college students want threatening ideas and conversations curbed on campus, according to a recent poll, even though nearly all of them believe free speech is integral to democracy. Well, I don't know what universities are teaching these days, what colleges are teaching these days, but you can't have one without the other. You can't have freedom of speech without occasionally hearing things that you don't agree with. But that's the whole point. If you don't agree, you stand up and you say, I don't agree, and here is why. And you present your arguments in open debate. And the fact that this now seems to be missing from the college curriculum is very disturbing. College isn't supposed to be a safe space. In fact, it's supposed to be a space of exploration, where you explore not only your own ideas in the world, you're finally away from your parents and you get to form your own view of the universe. And you get to hear other people's ideas about, where the future is going to go, because college is the step-off point. The young college kids are going to inherit this country. They're going to inherit the control of it. And this is where they should be forming their ideas. And sometimes you need to hear threatening or ideas or controversial ideas, because someplace in there might actually be something that you need to hear. Anyway, over on YouTube, which is already catching flack for all the people that they're banning there, their chief product officer has insulted his own users as basement-dwelling idiots who deserve to be relegated by the algorithm in favor of the authoritative mainstream sources. In other words, YouTube's policy now is that if you're not doing something that the government agrees with, that the authoritative view supports, if it's not mainstream, well, you're going to get blocked or you're going to get downvoted. And again, maybe there's something in that alternative point of view that you should be looking at. We are becoming very much 1984 and Orwell. Now, this is a little bit of good news. Scientists have developed an environmentally friendly plasma-powered jet propulsion system that uses air and electricity to propel itself forward. This is coming out of a Chinese research team. They say their prototype can generate thrust at the same magnitude as a commercial jet engine without burning fossil fuels and emitting greenhouse gases. Well, that's a major step forward. That's really cool, I think. Gosh darn those Chinese, they beat us to it again. All righty. If you're my age, you grew up thinking there were 9 planets. And then Pluto was demoted. The debate is still going on whether it should be considered a planet after the Far Horizons flew past it. But according to an article that came on out from Your Destination Now, there's talk of a new Planet 9 out there that they're trying to locate. And they know it's there because of perturbations of the orbits of the other planets. And that's actually been known for a long time, that there's something out there that is bending the orbits. Now, my personal thought is it's the core of a dead star that is very close to us in terms of interstellar distances, but very far away in terms of planetary distances, and that's why we can't see it. But according to this article, Planet 9 is a mirage, that it is not a single solid body, but a sprawling disk of icy debris. Need to find some evidence on that one. But that's what makes astronomy exciting. There's still stuff to discover out there. Okay. Believe it or not, they have discovered a black hole only 1,000 light years away, and it's near enough to see its orbiting stars with the naked eye on a clear night. It's in the constellation Trapezium, so you have to be in the southern hemisphere or close to the equator to see it. But they were basically mapping multiple star clusters, and they saw these 2 stars that were just whipping around this unseen center. And so they've realized they were looking at a truly black hole. There's no accretion disk, and it's only 1,000 light years away, and you can see the orbiting stars with your naked eye. There's been a surprise asteroid. We keep hearing about that. Truck-sized asteroid has careened past Earth. Oh, we got to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back. And welcome back to our show here. Last segment of this hour, and starting top of next hour, we will be taking phone calls. So feel free to dial on in, 800-313-9443. Okay, so there was a truck-sized asteroid. It careened past Earth in one of the closest flybys ever recorded. Okay, asteroid 2020 JJ whizzed past Earth at a distance of around 7,000 kilometers or 4,300 miles this week. That's an incredibly close shave, well within the orbit of the moon, and it makes it one of the closest passes of our planet ever recorded. Now, apparently, the asteroid was only discovered by the Mount Lemmon survey in Arizona at almost exactly the same time it reached its closest point to Earth. So, surprise! That would have caused quite a bit of noise had it actually hit the Earth. Okay, interesting little article coming out of Food Science and Nutrition, or actually Critical Reviews in Food Science and Nutrition. People who avoid meat tend to have worse psychological health than those who eat meat, according to the new research. Well, obviously there's going to be an issue if we're having meat shortages in this country. That's just going to add to the pressure that's on our society. Okay? So, subprime auto loans are starting to blow up. With 30 million unemployed, even the prime loans are going to get messy. The economy's in serious, serious trouble. And looking at all that's going on right now, I think it's very, very obvious that it was fragile to begin with, even before the coronavirus showed up, that it was being held together with spit and baling wire. Okay, apparently the latest frontier, if you will, for coronavirus, scientists are looking to llamas for antibodies against SARS-CoV-2 virus, which is the novel coronavirus that produces COVID-19. So apparently the llama and other animals of the camel family produce standard and smaller antibodies, which helps the researchers study them better. I saw this story and I had to comment. CNN's Don Lemon thinks Trump is jealous of Obama because Michelle is better looking than Melania. Now, I don't want to get into an argument over which one is better looking. I think the fact that one and only one of them worked as a professional model should settle that debate. But I think Don Lemon is kind of a little bit out there with this one. And really, corporate media for what can I tell you? All righty. The Fed's Clarita says we're living through the most severe contraction in activity and surge in unemployment we've seen in our lifetimes. That's true. That is definitely true. Okay. Italian scientists claim to have developed the world's first COVID-19 vaccine. So everybody's in the race. I've been hearing, we've got the vaccine for weeks now, and yet it never pans out. All right, there's the music. We're going to take station identification. Join us on the air, 800-313-9443, and we will be right back. Welcome back to our show. Hour number 2, the phone lines are open, 800-313-9443, and we're going to start with Jim in Illinois. Hello, Jim. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Well, Michael, I don't have a problem with people going back to work, but I do believe that the companies should give each worker some kind of test to make sure that they don't have a virus, and also it should be a safe working environment, because if not, you're going to have major lawsuits, throughout the country.
Well, I understand that a lot of employers are now having returning workers sign a contract indemnifying them and saying, if you come back to work here and you catch coronavirus, it's not our fault. Which I don't agree with, by the way.
Say it again, please.
I said I don't agree with that either, but apparently if you don't sign the contract, you don't get your job back.
Isn't that kind of blackmailing people?
Yeah, it does cross the line into extortion.
Yeah, because, again, I don't have a problem with people going back to work, but I think these companies should provide some kind of safety. And not only that, though, this is something that no one's really talking about. Look at the medical costs. If you do get this virus, who's going to pay for that, especially if you don't have any insurance? Yeah,
well, if you're young and you're not on Medicare and you don't have insurance, it's gonna run up a huge bill.
Right. And Michael, my final comment, what's your comments about this new whistleblower that worked for the FDA?
I think I've missed that one. Could you give us a quick rundown?
Well, this is a guy that tried to warn the FDA that this virus was coming, and also he got sort of maybe given a poor position because he was against this malaria drug that Donald Trump was promoting, and he said he was getting pressured to approve it because there were some people that were supporting Donald Trump and this particular drug, and they wanted to pass because it would not only help certain corporations, it would make Donald Trump look good. So now the guy has been, on the back burner as far as his job. He's going to be testifying in front of Congress next week.
Well, we'll definitely have to pay attention to that, and I have to admit I missed that one amidst all the other news that was going through here. But right. Absolutely.
Right, and and finally, what do you think about those Russian scientists that were thrown out of the window, and they claimed that they committed suicide?
Yeah, that's kind of a little weird. I mean, 1 suicide I'll buy, 3 no.
Only in Russia.
Well, I don't know. Look how many suicides we've had here. We had that one doctor in New York committed suicide. Was just that run down from the coronavirus.
Oh, you're talking about the lady, Dr. Green?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Well, Michael, I'm going to let you go because I know you have other callers. Take care.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over to Robert in Illinois. Hello, Robert. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. Perhaps Jim should really do some research and really know that there's really no true test for coronavirus or what they're actually doing. All these tests, they're really DNA scraping, dude. So people really need to start expanding their search and what they're hearing and so on and so forth. We're not denying that there's this COVID strain out there, but all the same, most of what we're getting is disinformation. I'll leave it there for that moment. You were talking about General Flynn in the beginning.
Yes.
How you were like they didn't want Flynn in there because he was going to they're afraid there's no overturn stuff Obama did. Look, really, there's all sorts of reasons. So there's a laundry list of why they wanted to get rid of Flynn. His policies, his thoughts, it's why they got rid of him in the first place, and so on and so forth. But they needed to get Flynn out of there so they could get their spy in there, and I believe it was McMaster that took Flynn's place. And McMaster was a spy, a double agent. He was one of the bad guys as far as we're concerned. So that was really, truly a primary reason. So they were going after Flynn for anything and anything to get him out of there. So we call this the assassination file, the Trump assassination files of all the different optics from Strzok, Page, Powers, Clapper, Brennan, you name it. The list is long, man,
Yeah. James Comey has to fit in there as well.
Absolutely. That Chinese, I brushed across that Chinese dude that, the suicide thing and whatnot. There's a lot of money, power, and deception involved in this whole thing they're pulling off now. So if this guy did actually have some legitimate thing going on that debunked or whatever you think, that's plenty of motive, and then, for this other person to have whatever, you got to think, he was probably an assassin. He got paid to be the assassin. Now either the people that paid him took him out, or he did an MK Ultra, where he took himself out.
Could be.
These things do exist.
Could be, but it's very, very strange, that they really were emphasizing he was on the verge of a major breakthrough.
Yeah, so we see it from I always forget the guy's name that assassinated, allegedly assassinated Bobby Kennedy. But he didn't remember anything, or a lot of the Manchurian candidates that they take their own lives and so on and so forth. Last thing I'll leave you with is that last thing with Don Lemon. Well, everybody pretty much knows. Anybody knows that Don Lemon is openly homosexual. Well, we also have the belief, which is fairly decently documented, that Michelle Obama is actually Michael Levon Robinson, linebacker, shoulders, and so on and so forth, and it's pretty much a male with a boob job and a large shaving bill. So for Don Lemon to say that, that's why. He's a punk. He's a CIA agent punk, and he gets his name Lemon because his handler always say, "Pucker up, pucker up." Anyway, I'll let you go.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go here, and we're going to switch to Joe in Houston. Hello, Joe. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Boy, that last caller stole my thunder about Don Lemon.
Okay.
Of course, the homosexual is going to be attracted to Michelle Obama with those wide shoulders and the big, strong arms and stuff. Not that Melania doesn't have big shoulders herself, but she's very feminine. She's an incredibly beautiful woman. And Michelle looks like a tranny you'll see on Martin Luther King Avenue and in a bad neighborhood. But, it just kind of, once again, kind of shows the scene. And every time these people just can't help exposing themselves, can they? There's something magical in the air. I know we're going to be headed for some hard times as far as what this coronavirus is going to cause economically and such. But these people, it's kind of like, putting a mouse or something on an electric football game. That's what's happening to the people in the whole world. It's kind of, everybody's going to be doing weird things and exposing who they really are, their character. So it should be interesting times. I got my COVID test swab done today. It's very uncomfortable, but we'll see if I test it out. And I wanted to comment on the Mark Twain prayer when I thought about it, and then it dawned on me, like, why did it, resonate? And it was and I thought about that movie, All Quiet on the Western Front, the old one. And they must have stolen a lot of that movie from that prayer, It's, I don't know if you've ever seen that, the old one. It's about a German soldier, and how he went off, rah, 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 and all the flag waving and bands and stuff. And then, and the school, and then he comes back as a soldier and he's at the school and he like freaks out, like, because they want to show him as a hero. And it was nothing heroic about war. And I wanted to add a book that people should read if they get a chance. It's called Johnny Got His Gun.
Yes.
It's also a World War II anti-war book, and it really is. It's very shaking. And I mean, I don't want people to get the wrong idea about me that I'm some kind of warmonger. I'm not, but I do think we need a military. I wish we weren't an empire, and I think that most of the wars that we've gotten involved in and the dirty things that we've done as a country were not really because of the military. They were more because of the intelligence agencies and the dirty tricks that we play with neocons, Zionists. I think that, and government people, I think generally, mostly that the people in the military are just following orders kind of guys. They do, we do need a military. I don't, I think that you can be somewhat pacifistic and not want war and realize that a way to avoid war is to make it appear that if you screw with the country, it's going to be painful. And therefore, a war is avoidance. So I think military is a necessity. I think that the way we have to stop things like Iraq and Afghanistan and 9/11 and events like that is to punish the intelligence community and the FBI that lie when they investigate these attacks against us. And that's why you'll hear me out. You've heard me call many times about that. And I hear a lot of people, they call in about the military, and I think that they're misdirected. I think that, once again, that it's the intelligence agencies that are really the dirty tricksters in this. And I think we should stay focused on them as the enemy. Now, once again, I would like to see our military reduced. I think we should go back to the Monroe Doctrine and avoid any kind of foreign conflicts. But I do think that it's important to maintain the sea lanes as far as a trading power that we are. And that's kind of where I'm coming from. So I just wanted to clarify that. I wanted to thank you for your great radio show. We appreciate you.
Thank you very much there. And I agree our military could be reduced. I mean, we have this nuclear arsenal. Nobody's going to invade our country. And as far as the sea lanes of communication, it justifies having, some form of navy. But the bottom line is that any nation that blocks the sea lanes of communications could be hit with a nuclear weapon. And that could be the deterrent right there. In fact, if you really think about it, the nuclear deterrent is really all the military that we need to keep peace in the world.
Once again, I'll go back to the Monroe Doctrine and the fact that nobody interferes with our trade. I think, like I brought up 2 anti-war movies about World War I. Mm-hmm. People talk a lot about wars, and that was the most destructive war to our country of any war we were involved in. Well, maybe the Civil War was worse, but that really led to World War II. Our involvement in World War I led to the problems with Zionism in Israel. It led to Hitler's rise. It led to the communist takeover of Russia. It really, it led to, and it was, if we just wouldn't have gotten involved in that war, there would have been a peace between Germany and France and England on terms, on fair terms. Our involvement in World War I was the biggest disaster, foreign policy-wise, in our country's history. And it's an important war that most people don't really study, look into, or remember, and it was a little while ago. And real quick, though, I saw Trump at the Lincoln Memorial, and I don't believe that, I do not like the way that Lincoln is like glorified. I think Lincoln was one of the worst presidents this country ever had. I mean, he was the president when over 500,000 Americans slaughtered each other in a war that was unnecessary, and that war was unnecessary. And I don't understand how, to this day, a man that caused that much destruction can be, put up on such a pedestal.
Let's not let the Confederacy off the hook on this one, because it really ultimately was their idea.
Well, I think it could have been avoided, and I keep saying that. It's like and it was a war of northern aggression. I mean, The war was aggression by the North on the South. There was very, and I think if they just would have not resorted to military violence, it would have ironed itself out. They let crazy radicals and abolitionists hijack the government, and that's basically what happened, and it started a war, and then there's other things involved. I mean, I'm not saying anything great about the Confederacy. I think they were stupid. The fact that they got extra political power for slaves was wrong. I mean, either the slave is a human or he's not, and it's, so there was a lot of issues that were wrong on that respect. But I think that having a war that was so destructive and could have been somewhat avoided, and I just think that making a hero out of Lincoln for that is, it bothers me, and that's just my opinion, and I stand with it.
Okay. Well, around here, of course, Lincoln is highly regarded. I live just a couple of miles from his boyhood home, and it's all done up, and there's a park there and a recreation of the cabin and all the rest of it. So around here, yours would be an unpopular opinion, which doesn't make it wrong. I'm just saying, around here, people very much revere Abraham Lincoln.
I mean, he was incredibly intelligent. He had such, if you read about him, I've done a lot of reading about him. His wit was incredible. Mm-hmm. I mean, but once again, I do think that war was avoidable. And,
I think so too.
And it was so destructive. There's been nothing like it in this country. And if you look at the percentage of the amount of people, over 500,000 people dead, and the population at the time too, 500,000 now is as much because we have 350 million people. Back then there was probably 50 million people or such. So I don't know how you can be president and have something like that happen and then be considered a hero. I'm sorry, maybe you were the victor, but I would have rather seen a president that would have been able to negotiate his. War is a failure of politics, right?
Yeah. Well, no, war is an extension of politics by other means. Von Clausewitz.
Yeah, I've also heard the expression "war is a failure of politics," and I think that war is a failure of politics, and Lincoln failed. So therefore, why do we honor him as such a great politician? So they call him a great statesman too. I mean, is that really a good statesman to bumble into a war that's so destructive? And yeah, the Confederacy, did some. And I say this: my great-great-grandfather fought in the Civil War for the North, Connecticut. Yeah. So I mean, it's nothing. But I think that to this day, I think that the Confederacy actually had a legitimate. They constitutionally, they were actually right. And I had heard that they were going to put Jefferson Davis on trial, and the Supreme Court told them, "Don't do it because he's going to win." So anyway, I always thought that was interesting. They never brought Jefferson Davis to trial because he would have won and shown that his cause was constitutional.
Yes.
So anyway, here we go.
Well, if you study the amendments to the Constitution that were passed in the wake of the Civil War, you'll see fundamental changes to the Constitution that retroactively invalidated the Confederacy's argument. Yeah,
that's right. So I'm actually my sympathies are with the Confederacy on their philosophical reasonings. I am more of a states' rights person. I think the founders thought we'd have 50 different individual laboratories of how to do things better. And,
yes.
I think I get a kick when people when I criticize other states and stuff. People get mad. You're offending the states. They take it personally when that's part of the whole reason why we should have states. Because we should make fun of states because they're mismanaged and praise states that do it right. And maybe the states that are mismanaged will listen to and watch what the well-run states do and do it. So anyway, that's just kind of the way I'm looking at it. Is I think it's important to see what states that are being run well and how they're doing it. Although they're of course I'm talking too much. I'll talk to you later, Mike. Thank you for hearing me out. This isolation and quarantine makes me talk too much.
Well, I know that feeling. I definitely do. Okay, we're going to switch over to Chris in FEMA Region 3. And Chris, I'm probably going to have to take you through the next commercial break, but what's on your mind?
Oh, hey, what's going on, Mike? I wanted to talk about the South China Sea.
Yes.
Yeah, it's called the South China Sea for a reason, right?
Yes.
Just like the Persian Gulf is called the Persian Gulf for a reason, right?
Or the Gulf of Mexico is called the Gulf of Mexico.
I know, right? But the Persian Gulf, though, I mean, so keeping the straits clear, I mean, what business do we have being there, or what business do we have being in China?
Well, we're projecting power because far from keeping the sea lanes of communication open, we're actually trying to enforce certain trade barriers. Anyway, we got to take a break for commercials. Don't hang up. I'm going to come right back to you after these words from our sponsors. Welcome back to our show. Here we're talking with Chris from FEMA Region 3. We're talking about China. We're talking about the sea lanes of communication. And far from this idea that the U.S. Navy is out there keeping these sea lanes open for free trade, the reality is that in the event of embargoes, the Navy will shut those sea lanes down. And that's why they want to be in places like the Persian Gulf and the Western Pacific so that they can, move to interdict shipping from countries we no longer like.
No, what's the name of the South China Sea? It's called the South China Sea for a reason, right?
Yes.
And then the name of the Persian Gulf, it's the Persian Gulf. So you were saying that we're projecting power there. That doesn't make any sense to me. Everybody that's calling for war and all this crazy stuff. So none of that makes sense. Hey, Mike, did you ever hear about the bioweapon lab in Georgia?
You mean former Russian Georgia? Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, they've been doing this stuff for years right now. You know that, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's funny. And then all these governments at the same time, they got in lockstep. Have you heard that term, lockstep?
Yes.
They got in lockstep together at the same time. They all went along with it,
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, so none of it makes sense. So all these people that are out there calling for war and all this crazy stuff, all these governments are together at the same time, Mike. It's the New World Order. You know that, right?
Well, I know that there's a lot of groupthink and magic think going on here. And yeah, ultimately the New World Order is going to have to declare war on countries unwilling to go along with it, which will include, unfortunately, Russia and China.
No, but I'm saying Russia, China, Iran, the United States, Israel, they all got together at the same time. They're all in it together.
I don't think Russia and China are going along with the New World Order. They want to be left alone.
I mean, maybe that makes sense. And then, like I said, you talked about earlier the small business loans. It was called PPE,
the Paycheck Protection Program.
Yeah, and then none of the small business owners got it. The only ones that got it were like small private equity loans, like hedge fund managers.
Yeah,
and they're all Jewish. Yeah, none of that makes sense. So that just goes to show you right there who's in control, right, Mike?
Yep.
And then a doctor you talked about earlier, all these doctors are coming out. They're saying that everything's a scam, and then hospitals are empty. Nothing's going on. Do you think that they have like GoFundMe pages that are set up?
I wouldn't really know if they have GoFundMe pages set up, but it does support the idea that, that British scientist overstated the predictions of death, and everybody hit the panic button, and now...
Oh, yeah. You saw that one where and then he left his house to go meet with his mistress or whatever?
Well, she came over to his house.
Right? He knew it all along. That's cool. And then, what do you think about all the depleted uranium that's going to be spread around? I mean, that's worse than the coronavirus, right? If they have these wars.
Nasty stuff. It's nasty, nasty stuff, and they should be thinking about finding some way to clean it all up. But, what we're basically doing is we're weaponizing our nuclear waste and then dropping it on other people's country to make it their problem to clean up.
That's terrible, Mike.
Yes.
And then when Trump was running for president, he said that he was going to censor the internet to stop ISIS. And we all know what ISIS is, right? You know what ISIS stands for, right?
Well, you're probably going to say it's the Israeli Secret Intelligence Service, but I have a hard time thinking that Israel would actually be that obvious.
Well, you know, Ben-Gurion talked about it. The New World Order based out of Jerusalem, the Supreme Court of Mankind. Have you ever heard about that?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, I know. It's terrible. It's crazy. So, I mean, I don't know, Mike. There's something going on here, man. What do you really think's going on, Mike? Do you think that there's a virus, or what do you think? Do you think it's just like a takeover?
Well, there's no question there's a virus. There's no question people are sick. There's no question that people have died, just not in the numbers that we were being told. And so now you have one camp that wants to inflate the figures so they don't look like they were overreacting. And then you have the other side that's saying, look, it's not that big a deal. It's time to relax all this stay-at-home orders and masks and the rest of it, and let us go back about our lives. And the two factions are warring with each other for
but
visibility.
the people that are just going to go along with it and say we want to go back to our lives, you know, they're going to take Bill Gates' vaccine, right? They're going to take the shot just to get back to some type of normalcy, right?
Actually, polls are showing most Americans will not take that vaccine. So anyway, we got to take a break for commercials. Thank you for the phone call. We've got more callers waiting on the line. We will be right back. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go back to the phones to Fred in Iowa. Hello, Fred. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
If the pharmaceutical companies say they found a vaccine that will cure or prevent the coronavirus, and the government and the mass media says that they have found a vaccine that will do all this, are you going to get a vaccine shot?
No.
Oh, that's good. You made a comment earlier in the hour that people that are meat eaters have less depression and outlook on life. I'm not saying it verbatim. What did you say about that?
It was basically the research showed that people who eat meat have fewer psychological problems than people who avoid meat. In other words, the vegetarians, which explains a lot of liberalism, I think, right there.
Okay. Who has the longest longevity on Earth, even by government standards? Live the longest?
Well, I don't know. I've been hearing a lot about, some 100 and 102 and 105-year-olds in the news lately. I'm not sure.
Okay, I can't remember the name of the island, the most southern island in Japan. I was there 65 years ago. And they have longevity. And another small country that I can't remember the name, they have the longest longevity. Well, that you could attribute that to they are all of one ethnic group and have the same DNA and same people. But there's the Seventh-day Adventists.
Yes.
We are the longest living people on earth. All right? Seventh-day Adventist is made up of every tribe and color and creed. So you can't say that it's an ethnicity or DNA or you make up. So what you said is, I'll use the biblical term, oxdom. But you can't get all your information, my friend, off the idiot box.
Yes.
And then you've got to think for yourself and be able to face the things that you may be wrong about as individuals. So that is baloney. I'm 82. I haven't been vaccinated in 60 years. In almost 6 years, I haven't even taken an aspirin. So, I'm a vegetarian, and a disciplined one. But if I can, had better teeth, I'd be a vegan. So watch where you get your information.
Well, I'm sorry if I upset you or if that story upset you, but, you know, don't kill the messenger.
Well, did my story upset you? The people with the longest longevity.
No.
For Seventh-day Adventists. Of course, there's going to be callers after this. And it's not going to come especially from atheists and agnostics and seculars. It'll come from other ignorant Christians. Okay. Have a good day. Bye.
All right. Thanks a lot, Fred. We're going to switch over to Mark in North Carolina. Hello, Mark. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Hey, what's up, Mike? It's not what I wanted to talk about, but I just to answer this guy. Yeah, I agree. Vegetarianism is healthy. Look at Tulsi Gabbard as an example of a vegetarian. I'm not a vegetarian, but the meat I do eat, I try to make sure it's grass-fed, free range.
Yeah.
And no hormones, no growth, no antibiotics or anything like that. And I really don't eat much meat. Most of my protein I get from fish and bean type, stuff. But anyway, what I really want to talk about is, well, it is kind of related, I guess you could say, is yesterday, it was the end of the show. I heard, I know you don't want me mentioning names of other callers, so let's just say this guy called from the Northeast, okay? He's from a northeastern state that borders on New York, all right? And he was talking about masks and, all this other hysterical stuff. Well,
gee, I wonder who that could be.
But, the fact of the matter is, it's very controversial whether wearing a mask isn't detrimental to you. I have learned a number of things since this thing started going on the net and listening to certain doctors, very good doctors too. And it seems to me that, and it makes sense, that wearing a mask is very detrimental because you're breathing in, we breathe in oxygen and we breathe out carbon dioxide. And as you breathe, so instead of breathing out that carbon dioxide, you're breathing it right back in with germs on top of it.
Yes.
And it attacks your immune system. It's not good for your immune system. And the other thing is, a lot of these new cases they keep on reporting is, since they are doing new testing, and basically they don't even know what they're doing with the testing because a lot of people may have a cold or may have recently had a cold, and since a cold is a coronavirus, it comes out positive. And so a lot, and at the same time, most of these new cases that they're talking about, the percentage of people that are really dying or even getting sick is low, is about the same thing as flu. Those two doctors from California, Dr. Messina and Dr. Erickson, pointed that out, And of course, YouTube is trying to silence them. They can't because it's all over the place now. But, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to, their agenda seems to me a Malthusian agenda. It seems to be connected with Gates. Even if you want to look at talking about carbon dioxide, I think it's even, connected to the stupid global warming myth. The fact that, they say if you breathe out carbon dioxide, you're causing global warming. And that's also connected to what they say about meat. My problem with meat is not carbon dioxide. My problem with meat is, I do love animals. I do have a bit of a conscience when I eat meat. But the other thing is, it's, like I said, they're poisoning these animals. They're putting them together. They're feeding them genetically modified garbage. And it's very unhealthy to eat. The other thing is, what they're not talking about to the environment is how the people like Gates and Monsanto are really hurting the environment with their genetically modified garbage they put out. Not just food, but they with a geoengineering as it is, which is very dangerous, I believe, for the planet. There's always, no matter what you look at, you got to look. There's always an agenda. Okay, I don't know this virus. I was listening to John Rappaport earlier. He seems to think this whole thing is fake. They're just making up stuff. They're coming up with other people are dying of different things, and they're just saying it's a what do you call it, coronavirus. Now, I don't know if I believe whether that's true. There seems to be some kind of a virus going around there, but I do believe they've already pretty much admitted they're faking the figures. Somebody jumps out of an airplane and doesn't put on a parachute. Somebody was saying that they gets eaten by a shark or something. They're going to say that's coronavirus. I mean, come on. It's not, this is what the kind of thing they're doing, and they're told to do it because, remember, the hospitals get money. They get, I think, something like $39,000 for every coronavirus death they report. And they get more money for putting somebody into a ventilator, which is horrible because they're probably murdering people doing that. No?
Yes.
That's pretty much it. It's not a matter of, and people are getting hysterical about this thing. And I'll be honest with you, in the beginning, I was very scared myself. I'm kind of a hypochondriac and all that. And I said, wow, man, this sounds bad. But the more I started studying it and looking at it, the more I realized how bad, that it's, if you take care of your immune system, you should be all right. You exercise. And one of the things, by the way, that's very detrimental is, now I belong to Gold's Gym. Now I just heard Gold's Gym has filed for bankruptcy earlier today. I hope this isn't true, because so what they're doing is healthy activities like going to the gym, they say is non-essential. But they'll keep a garbage fast food place like McDonald's open and say that's essential to go eat very unhealthy, disgusting type food that'll just make you sick and lower your immune system. That they'll keep, and they're keeping liquor stores open, and of course that's not good. So, there's an agenda to them. They don't want you healthy. They want you sick. Bill Gates wants you sick. So does Fauci. They don't want you healthy. They want you waiting for their vaccine, which won't do any good because you can't cure the common cold. You can't have a vaccine for the common cold, and this virus, as they're admitted, is related to the cold. The other thing is, whatever they come up with, you can bet is purposely going to be detrimental. They're talking about maybe, John Rappaport said, and I've heard this before too, that they're talking about changing your whole genetic being. I don't know how they're going to do it, but who knows? He's a mad scientist, Mike. We got to be careful. We got to understand who these people are. And please, folks out there, stop being hysterical, okay? Stop with the cases. Stop with the masks. Understand what's going on. Keep yourself healthy. There's no guarantees. There's no guarantees in life. I mean, a lightning strike could come right down my house now and cut me in half, all right? God knows. My dog, I trust my dog with my life, but who knows? Maybe he got he caught the rabies or something and it'll tear me apart. I mean, there is no guarantees in life. Anything can happen at any time. But the fact of the matter is, if you keep yourself healthy, you eat well, you exercise, get plenty of sunshine and fresh air, okay, chances are you're not going to get whatever this thing is. And if you do get it, you probably won't even know it, okay? That seems to be the majority of people who get it. And it's even older people like me. I'm up there. I'm up in your age range, okay? If you take care of your immune system, you should be okay. Now, if you're 90-something years old, you may have a problem, okay? Even then, if you take care of yourself, this shouldn't affect you, okay? They don't want you healthy, folks, okay? They want you sick. They want you helpless. They want you crawling around on your belly or showing your belly. And they want you curled up in a fetal position in your house. They don't want you getting, and by the way, once you do come out of the house, and if you have curled yourself up like that, now you really are susceptible not only to the coronavirus, but to a lot of other viruses and bacteria also, because your immune system is shot. And this is being explained by doctors, and it's common sense in a lot of ways, too. My late father, years ago, he used to tell me about the good germs and the bad germs, okay? You know, because I was a little kid, and it's the best way of understanding. But it's true. You got your good germs and your bad germs. And by the way, the country's immune system is being destroyed. And you know what that immune system is, Mike? It's our Constitution.
Yes.
The viruses are people like Gates, Fauci, and others that are trying to destroy this country. And the Constitution, and they're stamping on the Constitution, including the Second Amendment, was probably the most important immune part of the country's immune system. And that's all I got to say, Mike. You take it easy, right?
All right, thanks an awful lot.
Answer this. Bye.
Bye-bye. We're going to let you go and switch to Al in Canada. Hello, Al. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. Wow. I just chimed in about 20, 25 minutes ago. I haven't had a computer in two days because of some master boot record nonsense. Anyway,
yes.
The old fellow there, what was his name, Fred?
Yes.
Yeah. You know, he reminds me of Sam Elliott from that movie, We Were Soldiers.
Yes.
He seems to have that kind of demeanor. I like that guy. I like that. I wish he'd phone in some more. Your last caller, it's fantastic. Breathing into like an N95 mask, using it to filter particulate is not particularly a bad thing. It's actually a very good thing. Obviously, you can overuse them when they start to get oversaturated inside with moisture. They're not going to work very well. But I mean, that's just the way it is, right?
Yes.
But vaccinations, I phoned in a long time ago, years and years ago, to tell you that I almost died from my MMR over 50 years ago. My older brother's autistic. When I had my first fluoride treatment, I almost died. I was literally in the hospital for a month and a half. When I had 32, I decided to get some hay fever shots. The second to last one, the doctor hit a vein, which he admitted to with my next visit, and I almost had a heart attack from that because he literally went right into my bloodstream, and he had to douse me with a bunch of adrenaline all around that shot. So there's a lot of truth in a lot of things, and guys like you with your type of show, I mean, you're not peddling toothpaste and soap for a living.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
So
but my
you really have no
are
skin
for sale
in the
in the
game.
lobby.
You're not trying to peddle some hoax, vaccination or anything else. People just have to be aware, of what's going on around them. Just because Facebook has on their feed, which I don't use, something, it doesn't mean it's true.
No.
In fact, it's probably a lie.
Facebook has become a gatekeeper. So has YouTube, so has Google, so has Twitter. I don't use any of those anymore.
Well, they're basically peddling soap and toothpaste, really.
Yes. The government's
right?
soap and toothpaste.
I mean, Mike, you know what? I haven't had programming. When I say programming, like TV.
Yeah.
In almost 20 years now. Right? And the other night, I lost my computer trying to do a driver clean using an AMD utility from their website that destroyed my master boot record. So I had no computer because I didn't have a Windows 10 backup. And I was
you got to take a break for commercials.
Like my CD collection on my Ghetto Blaster.
Okay, Al, got to let you go. Got to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back with more phone calls. Welcome back to our show. Last segment of our program today. We're going to go back to the phones to Douglas in Tennessee. Hello, Douglas. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. I had a couple comments about Lincoln that Joe brought up. It's one of my favorite subjects is Lincoln and the Confederate position. Something that people don't understand that Lincoln did, why he is not a hero. When he was losing the war, we all know that he couldn't find a general to win his war. He passed an edict. He said if you guys will go out and if my generals will go and win this war, there won't be any trials for war crimes after the war. When I first heard that, I interpreted that to mean he was not going to prosecute the South for war crimes, but he was telling his generals to go out and do that voodoo, whatever it takes, to win this war, and he wasn't going to prosecute them. There wouldn't be any prosecutions for war crimes after the war. And that's what led to what Sherman did, the rape and the pillage of the civilian populations. It was a war on, he gave them permission to go wage a war on the civilian population. And that's why he's not a hero in my book. And really, it's understandable with the civic mindedness of the time, hyper civic mindedness that war brought out, that he ended up in the situation that he ended up, Lincoln, being shot and killed. It's understandable to me. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you know, generally the victorious side seldom sees war crime trials, but you're right. It was a very brutal war, and it was a brutal war on the civilians of the South. The reason for Lincoln's assassination, there's a lot of different theories about it, including his desire to keep the greenback in order to operate the United States government without going into debt to the bankers. Because when the war broke out, the bankers were willing to finance it, but at 30% interest. And Lincoln said, no, I'm not going to enslave the North to the bankers to free the slaves in the South. And he came up with the greenback, which he had the authority to do as president, and he basically funded the war that way.
One other thing about Lincoln, when he was campaigning for the presidency in the Lincoln-Douglas debates, he campaigned on the right and the responsibility of the people to stand up and cast off tyrannical government, which seems very hypocritical when when you look back at what ended up happening under his tutelage.
Well, you know, he's a controversial figure. I think that's all that we can say. Anyway, listen, I'm going to let you go and squeeze in one more phone call. Milton in Pennsylvania, what's on your mind?
I wanted to say, with this problem going on state by state and these governors that are doing all these draconian rules that they're making up as they go along, all right, we're all divided because people are thinking this is a Pennsylvania problem, New Jersey problem, you know, whatever the case is. And it's not. It's a whole American problem, you know?
Yes, it is. I mean, you're right.
And if we rise, we got to rise together and not be divided by these states. And the question I have, okay, there's nobody in power enough to override these people. They can play this game forever, right, and keep us locked up.
They can. Milton, I got to let you go. It's the end of the program here. Please stay tuned for John Stadtmiller. I'm sure he's got lots of interesting things to share with you. Please spread the word of RBN. Please spread the word of whatreallyhappened.com. Please donate. We need your help to keep doing what we're doing here. We'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.